Hello everyone, welcome to Kids Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2016 Honda Pilot. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on the dash while the engine is running. The customer also stated that there are other lights on the dash while the engine is running. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna confirm the customer's complaint. After confirming the customer's complaint, we're gonna connect the scan tool to the vehicle to see what kind of trouble codes we have in the engine computer. So now let's confirm the customer's complaint. So right there, as you can hear, the engine is running and the check engine light indeed remains on the dash. So customer's complaint confirmed. We have a couple messages on the dash display. Trailer stability assist problem. Road departure mitigation system problem. So it looks like this vehicle has a couple issues. Emissions system problem. Power steering system problem. Interesting. The customer is complaining about these lights, check engine light and the other lights that are on the dash. So once again, customer's complaint confirmed. Now, the steering wheel feels fine. Okay. It doesn't seem like we have a power steering problem. Okay, so check engine light is on. We have a couple lights on the dash. The dashboard looks like a Christmas tree. So now I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key on. I'm gonna get a scan tool connected to the vehicle and then I'll bring you guys back up so we can scan the engine computer. I got the scan tool connected to the vehicle. I'm gonna bring it up. We're gonna go to scanner. The scan tool has identified the vehicle, 2013 Honda Pilot with a 3.5 liter. So we're gonna click OK. Let's do a code scan. Let's scan all the control units on the vehicle and see what we got. We have one trouble code in the engine computer. Our code is P0304, misfire number 4 cylinder. So we have a misfire on cylinder 4. So this is what's causing the check engine light to be on. And then we have another code in the transmission control unit. Our code is P2638. And it says torque management, feedback signal A, range performance. Interesting. And then we have a code in the ABS control unit and it says ECM failure U0401. The last time I saw a ECM failure code on a Honda, the computer needed to be updated. So that's something we have to keep in the back of our minds. We have another code in the electronic power steering, vehicle stability assist system malfunction. We have two codes in the integrated driver support system, U0416, U0155, VSA brake actuator malfunction, lost communication with the gauge control module. So we have a couple U codes over here. Now, is the ECM failure code causing these other U codes? That's a good question. Because we got some communication codes here. Interesting. Lost communication with P/W, door lock with switch frame. And then we have a misfire code. So we know what causes a misfire code. This is a very common code. A cylinder misfires if there is a mechanical problem with a cylinder or lack of fuel or lack of air. Okay. Now, this engine sounds good. Based on how the engine runs, I don't think we have a misfire, but let's go into the engine computer. Let's focus on the misfire code first, and then I will tell you what we're going to do about the other code that we have in the transmission control unit. So we have one code in the engine computer, which is our misfire code. Let's look at it again right there, cylinder 4 misfire. Now let's look at some data PIDs. I want to look at some misfire counts. So let's go to misfire data. I'm going to start the engine, and then you're going to watch these misfire counts. So now I'm going to start the engine. First of all, I'm going to step on the accelerator pedal first. Let's see if we can put this in clear flood mode. I'm going to step on the accelerator pedal all the way to the floor. If this one has the clear flood feature, when I start the engine is just going to crank. It's not going to start. So let's see. Oh no, did you hear the RPM go really high? So no clear flood mode on this one. Okay, well, based on how the engine sounds, I don't think we have a compression or a mechanical issue with this engine. So let's go to data, but we're just not going to assume. We can check. I believe on a Honda there is a option in the functional test to turn off all the injectors, and then that's going to allow us to just crank the engine without having it to start. Okay, so let's see what we got here. We know cylinder 4 is the one that was misfiring. Right now the engine sounds good. There are no misfires right now. So we got cylinder 4 over here. I mean, 4 has a count right here. Cylinder 4 has 1, 5, 6 have 0. And when you go over here, 1, 2, and 3 have 0. So cylinder 4 misfired slightly. It only has 1 count. So right now the engine sounds good. It's not misfiring right now. So let's back out. I wonder if it's the other code that's causing the misfire. So let's go to the TCM. We have one code in the TCM. Our code is P2638 Torque Management Feedback Signal A Range / Performance. So P2638. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the engine, because the engine sounds good, guys. Just take my word for it, okay? I don't think we have a mechanical issue with this. Actually, if you're still wondering if we might have a mechanical problem, let me go back into the engine computer. I believe if we go to functional test, we can turn off the injectors. Let me turn the key on. Let's go to functional test. So all injectors. This test deactivates all fuel injectors. It can be used for a compression test or starter test in the service manual. Okay, so this is good because this is going to disable all the injectors for us. Okay, let's continue. Okay, this has a automatic transmission. This function manually stops all injectors. Do you wish to continue? Yes. Okay, so now I'm gonna crank the engine. It says, attention, all injectors are stopped. After work is done, do the ECM/PCM reset with tester, or the engine will not start. So now I'm gonna crank the engine You hear that? The engine sounds good. Guys, listen. I'm doing, right now all the injectors are turned off by the scan tool. I'm gonna crank the engine, so when I press this button, the engine is not gonna start, it's just gonna crank. Listen. You hear that? So that's good, okay? Perfect. All right, so we don't have a mechanical issue based on how this engine sounds. The engine cadence sounds really good. It sounds consistent and even, so that's good. So let's back out. We have to go to ECM reset, special functions. So right here, ECM reset. So we have to reset the ECM so that the engine can start. Continue to ECM reset. ECM has been reset right there. Okay, so now the engine should be able to start now. Okay, as you can hear, the engine is running, so that's good. So now I'm going to turn off the engine. Let's turn the key back on again. So let's back out. I want to look up the code that we have in the TCM. And then I'm going to go under the hood and swap the ignition coil from cylinder 4 to cylinder 1 or cylinder 3, whatever cylinder that's next to it, to see if the misfire is going to follow the coil swap. So let's go to transmission. Once again, here's our code, P2638. Okay, so let's go to service info. I'm gonna look up this code. So code P28. P28, no, P2638. So 2638. So P2638. Okay. So P2638 engine control module, let's click on it. So let's see if there are any TSBs about this code. Automatic transmission. Here it says, to fix this problem, reset the PCM with HDS, then do the idle learn procedure exactly as shown in the service information. So it looks like we have to do a PCM reset to fix this code. Now let's back out. Let's see what else we have. Engine computer. It looks like it's the same thing. So this might need a software update. So real fixes, here it says P2638 programmed powertrain control module. So this is information that Mutual Pro Demand gathers from other technicians. It says connected a scan tool and found code P2638, torque management feedback, signal A range/performance, used the scan tool to clear the codes, but found that the codes reset, used the scan tool to monitor live data and found that the powertrain control module did not have the correct calibration. So it looks like to take care of this, we might have to calibrate the powertrain control unit. Okay, powertrain control module did not have the correct calibration. And then the correction was programmed the powertrain control module, cleared codes, performed the road test, and verified that the vehicle operated properly. So one of the issues that fixed this code was programming the PCM. So that's good to know. Second one here says that they had to replace the transmission. Interesting. Then third one also said that they programmed the engine computer. All right. So it looks like this code is usually caused by a computer that's out of calibration or a transmission issue. Now, this vehicle only has 109,000 miles. Let me show you the mileage of this vehicle. So I don't believe the transmission is already gone. I mean, it could be gone, but I don't think so. Only 109,000 miles. So not even 150. Okay. So what are we going to do? How are we going to go about fixing this? So let's check out our top repairs. So the thing that has fixed this code the most is programming the PCM, programmed automatic transmission control unit, replace transmission assembly. Okay, so this code is either caused by a bad transmission control unit or programming the transmission control unit or a PCM that's out of calibration. Okay, causes and fixes, same thing. Powertrain control module, transmission control unit. So here is the TCM. All right, so what are we gonna do? What directions we're gonna go to fix this? Here is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna call the customer and ask when was the last time he did a transmission flush. I'm gonna recommend a transmission fluid change. And then I'm also going to recommend doing a computer update. Now, I don't have the equipment to do the PCM or the TCM update. I'm going to have to take this to Honda, to the Honda dealership, so they can do the TCM update. I believe the software on the TCM and the PCM is most likely out of calibration, just like we read on the service info. Now, this is a new customer. So I don't know the history of this vehicle. I'm gonna call the customer and ask more questions. This customer actually found me on YouTube. He's one of my subscribers. So Edward, if you're gonna watch this video, thank you for coming to us and thank you for your business. So Edward found me on YouTube. He reached out and he set up an appointment and he brought his vehicle here. So here we are. He told me that he had already taken his vehicle to another shop. They replaced the mass airflow sensor, they replaced the spark plug and the ignition coil, I believe, but the vehicle is still not fixed. We have all these lights on the dash. If we have a calibration issue, it's going to explain why we have a lot of lights on the dash. Okay, we could just be chasing a ghost while the issue is just a calibration. Now, before I take this to Honda, what I'm going to do is, let me go under the hood. I'm going to swap the ignition coils and see if the misfire is going to follow the coil. If it follows the coil, then we have to replace the coil. If not, then we're going to do the computer update first and see what happens. Because the computer update can also cause the engine to misfire. If we have a computer that's out of calibration, if the software it's not updated, if it's out of date, it can cause all kinds of issues. So before we start replacing parts that this car probably doesn't need, let's do our due diligence. Let's just swap the coils and see if it follows the coil, if the misfire follows the coil. If it doesn't, we're gonna take this to Honda, get the ECM updated, okay? So I'm gonna talk to the customer and then I'll bring you guys back up. But before I do that, let's go under the hood first and swap our ignition coils around. Now, I'm gonna bring up our scan tool. Let's figure out the cylinder layout so we can know where cylinder number 4 is. The bank in front of the vehicle is going to be bank 2, and the first cylinder on this bank is going to be cylinder 4. Okay, so let's go under the hood and swap the coil around and see what happens. I removed the engine cover, and guess what I found? Look at this ignition coil. This coil looks new, and look at this coil over here. This is old, this coil is old, but this one looks new. So it looks like someone replaced this coil. So the ignition coil was replaced already. And also the mass airflow sensor was replaced, just like the customer told me. As you can see, the mass airflow sensor is new. So they already tried fixing this car. They replaced the mass airflow sensor, they replaced the ignition coil, and I believe the customer told me that they also replaced the spark plug, but the same code kept coming back and the lights kept coming on the dash. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna swap these coils around. Maybe the coil they got is defective, I don't know. So I'm gonna swap these coils around and then see what happens. But I believe, based on all these components they replaced and the vehicle is still not fixed, I believe this vehicle is gonna need a computer update. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna swap these coils around. So I undid the bolt for the ignition coils. So now I'm gonna remove this coil. I'm gonna disconnect the electrical connector of this one. We're gonna remove this coil. We're gonna put it in this cylinder over here. So just like that. As you can see, our new coil is now on this cylinder, not this one. So now let's go in the vehicle and start the engine. Let's see if the misfire is going to follow the coil. We are back in the vehicle. We swapped the ignition coils around. Now I'm going to start the engine. So the check engine light went off by itself. So as you can see, the light is off. I'm going to turn off the engine. I'm going to turn the key on. So it looks like this vehicle is just going to need a computer software update. We have to take this to Honda so they can update the computer, because we saw that the other shop replaced the mass airflow sensor and the ignition coil, but this problem comes back intermittently. So I don't know if it's going to be fixed now. So let's see. Let's scan the engine computers again. This is very interesting. The code that was in the engine computer is gone. The P0304 code is gone, but the code in the transmission control unit is still here. P2638, this code is still here. So let's scroll down and see what else we have. So we have the same codes, but the misfire code. So the misfire code is gone. I didn't erase the trouble codes. The code went off by itself. So let's go into the engine computer. Let's look at our misfire data, and then I'm going to test drive the vehicle. If our misfire code doesn't come back, tomorrow I will take this vehicle to Honda so they can update the TCM and the PCM. Because based on the mileage that the vehicle has, I don't think this transmission is bad. I mean, it could be bad, but I don't think so. We're going to test drive it first and see how it drives. Okay, so over here we have cylinder 1, 2. Now the one that we have over here on cylinder 4, I believe it's if it's from the old one, but actually I saw this number counting here. Oh, right there, cylinder 4. Cylinder 4 counted a little bit. Now we didn't swap the spark plugs, we just swapped the ignition coils. Cylinder 4 has got 5 counts. Okay, this is interesting. I mean, the engine sounds good. It's not misfiring. Okay, so I'm gonna put the scan tool over here on the passenger seat. Now let's take this for a test drive. Let's drive this vehicle. Let's take it for a test drive, and then when we get back, we're gonna scan the engine computer again. If the misfire code doesn't come back, then I will take the vehicle to Honda tomorrow so they can update the engine computer. I believe this just needs an update. So we didn't replace anything, we just swapped the coils around. I didn't erase the trouble codes. The code went off by itself. So let's drive and see what happens. If the check engine light doesn't come on, I will still take it to Honda so they can do the TCM and PCM update. The vehicle drives well. The vehicle has a lot of power. As you can see, there are no lights on the dash. And as I'm talking to you, I'm also looking at the scan tool. I'm looking at the scan data. Everything on the scan tool looks good. I don't know. You guys tell me, what do you think is wrong with this vehicle? We had a misfire code, and then we had a transmission code. The transmission seems to shift fine. Based on the mileage that we have, I don't think we have a transmission issue. Okay. We swapped the coil around. We got back in the vehicle. The code went off by itself. So I believe this vehicle needs a computer update. I'm gonna drive back to the shop. When I get back to the shop, I will bring you guys back up so we can scan the engine computer again. Maybe we have a pending code that came back. We are back at the shop. I'm gonna bring up our scan tool. I was looking at the scan tool as I was driving. Nothing looked off. Okay, all the numbers that we have here are within spec. So nothing too crazy. So I'm gonna back out. I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key on. Let's scan the engine computer and see if there's a code that came back. Permanent code, no codes present. Temporary code, no code. Okay. All right, so we are good to go. The vehicle drove well when I drove it. Okay. The only code that we have is this one, and then this ECM failure code. So I'm gonna get the scan tool out of the way. I'm gonna leave this right over here for now. Tomorrow, I'm gonna take this vehicle to the Honda dealership so they can do the engine computer update and the TCM update. And after that, I'm sure this is gonna be fixed. We swapped the coils around. The misfire code went off by itself. We test drove the vehicle. The vehicle is fine. There are no lights on the dash. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, the only thing I can think about is a PCM being out of calibration and causing all these lights to be on the dash. Okay? Because the customer said that the other shop replaced the mass airflow sensor and the ignition coil, and I believe they replaced the spark plugs also, but the misfire code kept coming back and the lights on the dash were still on. So I believe this is a computer software issue. So I'm going to take this to Honda and then I'll bring you guys back up. It is the next day. We are driving. I'm driving to the Honda dealership. I'm going to the dealership so they can update the engine computer and the TCM. So when I get to the Honda dealership, I'm going to show you the outside of the dealership. I don't think they're going to allow me to film while I am inside the dealership. I will just show you the outside, and then I'm gonna turn off the camera. Then I will bring you guys back up when the update is done. So I'm gonna go there for a couple minutes, hopefully just half an hour. They're gonna update the PCM, and after that we should be good to go. So let's go to the dealer. We are here at the Honda dealership. So here is the Honda dealership. So I'm gonna go to service, okay, so they can program the ECM and TCM. So we're gonna go to service. I'm gonna turn off the camera. I will bring you guys back up once they're done programming the ECM and the TCM. All right, guys, we are back at the shop. I picked up the vehicle from the Honda dealership. The guys at the dealership told me that there are no update or calibrations available for the engine computer and the transmission computer. This TCM and ECM are up to date. You know, there's no programming needed. So this is good to go. The issue we have is either being caused by a defective TCM or a defective ECM. So at this point, we either gonna replace the TCM or the ECM. Now, I talked to the customer. I told the customer that since the vehicle is driving well, I checked my powers and grounds at the TCM and the ECM. These control units are getting good power and good ground. I also checked my communication wires. Everything is good. So this is an intermittent issue because it's coming and going. When I drove the vehicle back from the Honda dealership, everything was fine. So I told the customer to pick up the vehicle. I don't want to replace the ECM yet. I also don't want to replace the TCM yet because I don't have enough evidence to replace these control units, because I don't have enough proof that the TCM is bad or the ECM is bad. So I told the customer to pick up the vehicle and drive it. Hopefully whatever that's happening is going to become constant. Hopefully there will be a fault that's not going to be intermittent anymore. And I told the customer if the lights come on the dash again, he should watch how the vehicle drives and how the transmission shifts. He should drive it for a couple more days and bring it to us so we can do more tests and see what happens. Hopefully this issue is going to become a permanent issue so we can do some testing to figure out exactly where the problem is coming from. Because right now I just don't have enough evidence to replace a control unit that's expensive, okay? So I'm going to give this back to the customer. The customer is going to come pick it up. I'm going to start the engine and show you the dash. And then we're going to look at the scan tool again. And after that, we're going to wrap up this video. And I have a question for you guys. I know there are a lot of Honda experts out there. If you have this issue, if you are dealing with an issue like this, how would you go about this? I'm curious to know what you guys would have done in this scenario or in this instance. Because someone already worked on this Honda. They replaced the mass airflow sensor, they replaced the coil, but the vehicle is still not fixed. And I believe they replaced the spark plugs too. So we don't want to be like that shop and just throwing parts at the car. We have to figure out what we need. So right now, unfortunately, I can't figure it out. I mean, the vehicle is fine right now. So there's nothing I can do, okay? So I'm going to start the engine so I can show you the dash. Then let's look at the scan tool again, and then we will wrap up this video. So as you can see, the engine is running. There are no lights on the dash. I'm going to turn off the engine. I'm going to turn the key on. So we have the same code that we had before. So I'm going to back out and erase all these codes. And then we're going to give this vehicle back to the customer. We technically didn't fix anything. We did some tests. Everything checked out fine. So I don't know what to tell you guys. I told the customer to bring it back. Hopefully this issue is going to come back and hopefully it's going to be permanent so we can figure out what's causing this. And then we will fix it. Okay? The scan tool is done erasing all the codes from all the control units on the vehicle. Okay, so we're good. Let me scan these control units again. Let's see if the code inside the TCM is going to come back. So as you can see, the code in the TCM didn't come back. Okay, so that's good. I don't know what to say, guys. Let's give this back to the customer. I'm going to tell the customer to keep an eye on the vehicle and let us know how it goes. I'm going to leave this right over here. I hope I was going to have answers for you guys, but I didn't have much to share with you on this one. So I'm more curious to hear what you guys will say. You know, let me know in the comment section, you know, how you would have gone about this vehicle. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this vehicle comes back with a permanent fault so that we can figure out what's wrong with it. But I told the customer, whatever that's happening, eventually it's going to become a constant problem, and then eventually we're going to fix it. Okay, so I'm confident that whatever that's happening, after it becomes constant, we're going to figure it out and fix it. Okay, so I'm going to leave this right over here. I hope you liked the video. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give it a thumb down. But if you do, you got to tell me why, so we can make better videos in the future. If this is your first time here, subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you can get notified every time I upload a new video. If you have any comments, questions, criticism, leave them in the comment box. Thanks for watching. See you next time.